I'll go on later, but before I do, I want to take this time to recognize another Georgian who's here with us to pay his respects, and that's Representative Hank Johnson, and I'll yield to him the time that he will consume.
I thank my friend Buddy Carter, and for the record, I want it to be known that it was he who called me yesterday to find out what color suit and tie I was going to wear. And Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to a great Georgian and a great American, former Georgia Governor and U.S. Senator Zell Miller, who died at the age of 86 in March. He was a North Georgia mountain boy of humble beginnings who was raised by a single parent after his daddy died when he was just 2 weeks old. He was raised in a house that his mama built with her own hands. Former presidents, governors, and dignitaries from all over the country and the world have honored Mr. Miller, who launched the state's Hope Scholarship and led Georgia into the 21st century. A true statesman who served Georgia and his country as first a United States Marine, then as mayor of Young Harris, later serving as a state senator, thereafter as lieutenant governor, and then as governor, and finally as United States Senator. Zell Miller dedicated his life to public service. He was a man physically compact and a bit short, but he walked tall and he walked strong, and he left a towering legacy. A small-town mountain boy from the little town of Young Harris, Zell Miller made a big impact on the affairs of Georgia and indeed the affairs of the nation. Zell Miller left a huge impact on Georgia's judicial system. He literally changed the face of the state bench. I'd like to submit for the record an article I found of particular interest from the Fulton County Daily Report dated March 23, 2018, by managing editor Jonathan Ringel. It was entitled, "The Late Zell Miller Diversified the Bench." Zell Miller was the first governor to appoint a significant number of minorities and women to the Georgia bench. Zell Miller should be remembered for actually desegregating Georgia's courts. As the Daily Report article outlines, by the time Zell Miller left the governorship in December of 1998, he had appointed 37% of Georgia's 287 trial and appellate court judges. Those numbers include 4 of the 10 judges on the State Court of Appeals and 5 of the 7 state Supreme Court justices. Zell Miller appointed an African-American female as the first African-American to ever serve on the Georgia Supreme Court. 25 of Governor Miller's appointments were of African Americans. 42 of his judicial appointments were of women. 11 were African American women, meaning he added 56 black and female judges to the bench in his 8 years. It's a fact that Zell Miller appointed more African Americans to judgeships in Georgia than all previous Georgia governors combined. In addition, Governor Zell Miller appointed an African American to serve as Georgia's Attorney General, making that African American the first African American state attorney general in the nation. It's a remarkable record for any governor, let alone one from the Deep South. And one of the first counties where he began to diversify the bench is my home circuit, the Stone Mountain Judicial Circuit. As governor, Zell Miller appointed as state labor commissioner the first African American to ever hold a non-judicial constitutional office in Georgia, and Zell Miller appointed more African Americans to more state boards than any other Georgia governor. As Executive Secretary for Governor Lester Maddox from 1968 to 1971, Zell Miller was credited with exerting a moderating influence on Governor Maddox, a segregationist, and spurring him to appoint blacks to his administration, which he did. As governor, Zell Miller led an unsuccessful effort to, back in 1993, to remove the Confederate battle emblem from the state flag, and he pushed legislation providing more money for public schools and scholarships for high school students. In fact, Governor Miller raised teacher pay in Georgia by 6% for 4 successive years. 4 successive years, 6% each year. By the time he stepped down after his second term of governor, Zell Miller was one of the most popular politicians in Georgia's history, leaving office with an astounding 85% approval rating. So I thank the gentleman from Georgia's 1st Congressional District, my friend Buddy Carter, for inviting me here this evening to provide a few remarks about the passing of this Georgia lion, Zell Miller, who did a lot of good for our state and for our people. And I truly appreciate him for that. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with that, I'll yield back to the gentleman from the 1st District.
I thank the gentleman for